Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me and our amazing panelists for our Why Race Matters panel discussion. Why Race Matters is a series of powerful conversations elevating issues of importance affecting Wisconsin's Black communities. You can watch the first episode now online at whyracematters.org and in the free PBS video app everywhere you stream TV. Our panelists have served on the Why Race Matters advisory for the past 2 seasons and have guided the content we've shared. Let's go around and do introductions, and then we'll get into today's conversation. Solomon, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, most definitely. My name is Solomon Roller. I've been on the advisory committee for 2 seasons. I currently stay in Atlanta, Georgia.
Thanks, Solomon. Dr. Pate, would you like to go next?
Well, thank you. And thank you for that French distinction. It's David Pate, and I'm a professor at University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee in the Department of Social Work. And I've been on the advisory board as well for 2 years, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Apologies for the unnecessary accent. I guess I call you David so much that I'm like, how do I pronounce your last name? So thank you, Dr. Pate.
That's fine.
And last but not least, Miss Jackie.
Hey, everybody. My name is Jacqueline Hunt. I am the CEO and founder of Foster, a small nonprofit here in Dane County, as well as a licensed clinical substance abuse therapist.
Thank you, Miss
And
Jackie.
I've been on the advisory board for the past 2 seasons as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackie. And thank you to all of you for taking the time to share about your experiences with us, being on the advisory, as well as just being a Black person in Wisconsin. But before we get into that, tell us why serving on the PBS Wisconsin Why Race Matters advisory has been important to you.
I'll kick it off.
That's for anyone.
Last. Okay. So it's important for me because, one, I just felt like here was an opportunity to have voices amplified of the Black experience here in Wisconsin. And so I just felt like I should take the opportunity to be a part of that if possible, where possible. And I do so everywhere is possible. Thanks.
I was going to say, I know that is not isolated to Why Race Matters. So appreciate that you're bringing what you bring everywhere else to this space as well.
Yep. Thanks.
All right, David or Solomon?
Oh yeah, I can start off. I think this has been important to me because it's first off, it seemed like a good opportunity when it was presented to me. You know, I was in Connecticut at the time, and I think I just wanted to have more discussions. I wanted to gain more knowledge, and honestly, through our conversations, I've been put onto a lot that I've been able to check out. My respect for both both of y'all on this board has grown immensely over the past 2 seasons. So like, it's just been a lot of good energy and to actually like to have some power, to have some choice into who we feel deserves to have a voice. Everyone deserves to have a voice, but putting those on a platform and of just like different aspects and avenues of the Black experience. So I feel like that was important to me.
Yeah, and I agree with Solomon. I agree with Solomon and Jackie as well that it was a chance to be and have an opportunity to, for me personally, share my experiences as a Black person who lives in this city, from a city that is predominantly Black, but also it gave me the opportunity to share my professional understanding in an academic way about the issues of being Black in a state like Wisconsin, but also nationally, and bringing some of that home. And I have to say, it's been a very great experience and unique experience that many academics don't get, where you're able to share your professional or academic learnings, but also your realistic, reality-based ground, on the ground learnings in a way that you can see whether or not you're keeping it real. And also, I think putting people on blast is important, so that you know what's real and what's not real out here, and how people are affected, because you often don't get that opportunity. So I think it's been a phenomenal experience that I always will remember.
Thank you all so much. I think you've definitely teed up nicely our next question, but also as you were speaking, I realized that I think it's important to like pause for a second just to contextualize like why an advisory. I think you all implied the why within your responses, but for those who are viewing this and are wondering like, why does this PBS show, essentially why they create an advisory around this content? And the reason that we did is for all the reasons that Solomon, David, and Jackie just mentioned. We wanted to make sure that we captured the Black experience in Wisconsin, but did so from a place of sensitivity and care where we're not suggesting that our community is a monolith. There's such great diversity of experiences. And as much as possible, we wanted those experiences to be reflected in the decision-making behind the scenes. So the advisory was created to do that. So it's not just me driving decision-making or others that are part of the production crew. It literally are members of the community that represent and reflect those diverse points of view. And so in terms of you all's experiences, I get that we each come from different places and spaces and have had different experiences and exist in different professional spaces within the state. I also wanted to share that one of the main things we wanted to amplify within Why Race Matters, like you all mentioned, is the Black experience. And that the 2020 census suggests that we make up about 12% of the population. And that percentage can vary depending on where you live within the state. So given our different backgrounds, given our different points of origin, given our different professions, can you share in brief what your Black experience in Wisconsin has been like? And whoever would like to start, go for it.
I came here as a student, as a doctoral student. So the one thing that hit me coming from Chicago, having been born and raised in Philly, in a predominantly Black neighborhood, but then living in Chicago, I still had more diversity. And then coming here, I have to admit, the first thing I noticed my first day of class was that the flood of white people, I just was not used to being in a space where there was so many people. It was definitely a space that we would say now is white space. And that was very shocking to me and also slightly uncomfortable. Not that I was lacking confidence. It just was like, oh, this is different than what I'm used to based on I lived in Chicago in a Black community, a Black middle-class community at that. It was called Chatham, was the first Black middle-class community in the country. And I made a point of making sure I stayed in the city of Chicago and supported Chicago. But coming here, because my wife had family here and I was getting a PhD because I was trying to do something different as I looked at what I want my life to end up like in terms of when I needed a pension because I need to make some money. I thought this would be the route to go. But I have to admit it, you do feel like you're isolated, you're alone, that you don't fit in. And I have to admit there's some difference about the people whom I met here whom are Black and white versus a Chicago or a Philadelphia Black or white person. And also so it was a very humbling experience, but also at the same time, very isolating experience for me and continues to be honest.
Thank you for sharing that, David. That's very relatable. I feel like for those of us who came from more predominantly Black spaces to Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Ms. Jackie. I didn't mean to cut you off. And just a little PSA for us to silence our phones, please, too.
Okay. So yeah, my experience was definitely different from David's. I did not come here to go to school. I came here to escape a lifestyle that I had adopted in Chicago. I too grew up in Chicago, Southwest Side, two-parent household, Christian values, I'll say moderate middle class. But yeah, early in my teens and my young adulthood, I made some bad choices and ended up in a pretty bad space. As a single mom with 2 kids and 1 kid on the way, I moved to Wisconsin, to try to change my life and to change my environment. It worked for me for a while. It didn't take long for me to return to old patterns and behaviors. But for the most part, Wisconsin or Madison has been okay for me. Trust and believe I've had to deal with all the systems here. I mean, every system here. As a single parent, I raised 7 kids here. and my experience in each, I guess, in each sector, like in education and employment and training and financial, even in my social life here, I do still find myself isolated. Even though I'm well known in the community and I do a lot in the community, I feel like my social life here I struggle with it, just because of the type of work that I do in the community. So that was definitely a different, that's definitely different for me. I'm from a place where Sunday dinners just happen. It's not an invite. It's like you show up, and you know that it's gonna pop off. Simple as that. Also, though, I will to piggyback off of what David stated about Madison being a white space. I often found myself being the only person of color, the only Black woman that would, one, speak up, two, advocate for others, not only just myself, but for others. And in my educational journey, because I did eventually take that journey here, I definitely was always one of only two. I'm not even going to say a few. I would say I was always definitely one of two, or maybe one of one in my classes. But for whatever reason, I felt like after fighting so much to finally regain a sense of self and everything, when I was in those spaces, I wasn't afraid to be who I am in those spaces, and I haven't been holding back in any of the talks that we've had as well. I come from a very humble beginning, and I share that openly, but I'm also willing to advocate for others as well. I'll take the bullet. So I'll stop there. Let Solomon go.
Thank you, Ms. Jackie. And it sounds like there are two themes that you all definitely repeated. Education being maybe not necessarily the driver, but there being like an educational component that, when you're here, that was something to take advantage of, but still that feeling of isolation being felt. And so, Solomon, I'm very curious, as someone who is from Wisconsin, born and raised, even though you clearly said you're not here anymore, so maybe there's more you can expound upon around that.
Yeah.
But do you resonate with what David and Jackie have said, given that this is maybe more familiar to you?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, growing up in Wisconsin was definitely like an interesting experience. Definitely, what both Jackie and David said, like, even as a kid, like I remember being in elementary school and it was a very, like, at times isolating experience. I remember I think I was 11 or 12 when I first decided I wanted to leave Wisconsin. And I was like, I wanted to leave like as soon as, like, I was asking my parents like if we had family in other cities, and I just wanted to leave. I wanted to leave really bad. And I think there's a lot of things about Wisconsin that I wasn't able to process until I moved out when I was 17. And even then, I didn't plan on staying in Wisconsin. My mom wanted me to go to college. I didn't want to go to college because I just never really was. I never saw myself in that light. Like I never really saw a situation where I was like, where it made sense for me to go to college. And also I was like, all right, well, none of us can afford it. So I told my mom the only way I'd go is if I got a scholarship. And then I got a scholarship. I was like, oh, no, I gotta go. So I had to stay. I stayed in Wisconsin, and it was a very it was just an interesting experience. It's like it was like learning how to be myself outside of everything that was pushed onto me as a kid, and I was just doing the best I could. I was doing the best I could. It was it's a lot on my mind even now. Just thinking about my mind, there's a lot of things popping back into my head, but like as much as I was trying badly to get out of Wisconsin, being there taught me a lot too. Like it was, I don't think, and that me and some of my friends in First Wave, some of the ones I'm so connected with, we've talked about this too, like how Wisconsin, like we wouldn't be who we are today had we not gone through that education system, and not necessarily all the positive things, but like a lot of the BS we had to deal with, a lot of the systemic stuff we had to deal with, a lot of the personal things that we had to deal with. If something was going on with one of us, like something happened, and being there for each other, or like knowing how to navigate certain spaces, and being exhausted, like just so many nights of like heart to hearts with the people you care about, and you just kind of like, damn, well, I want the best for all of us, but this is just not the ideal situation. And then also seeing as time went on, just people that you used to see every day, and all of a sudden they're dropping out and they're leaving because they just mentally can't handle it anymore. And I was almost one of those people too. I almost dropped out just because I mentally was struggling a lot with being in those spaces, and I definitely had like a year or two where I felt like I was like going crazy, and then that kind of pushed me to go to therapy and start kind of having that process of unfolding a lot of things that happened being in Wisconsin. And but I will say the thing that really helped me have a better experience was just art and music. Like even as a kid, like I got to go to Chicago, I got to go to Philly, I got to go to Atlanta. And I was brought there for, what I did as an artist. So I definitely feel like in certain ways I was very lucky to have some of those experiences, because even at a young age I had a little bit of a wider perspective of what I could do and where I could go. So I was always like, oh, well, I know I can be successful and get out of here and not have to be here for the rest of my life,
Thank you for sharing your experiences, Solomon, as well as like you uplifting the tools and the other things you implemented to help you maintain what you needed to finish school and just live in the way that you preferred while you were here and before you moved out of state.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a good setup for a follow-up question. So I'm going a little bit off script, but still related to kind of where we are in terms of the reality of what living in Wisconsin has felt like and how it maybe is compared to other spaces in which you've previously lived. What have you done or do you currently do to help you navigate those feelings of isolation or not having access to things that might be familiar to you? Because I think I appreciate you all's honesty in that way, because Madison, and I'm calling out Madison specifically because we are a Madison-based team. Well, David, you're kind of Madison. You're Madison, but you're also like Milwaukee, so both. But Madison specifically is like constantly being uplifted as one of the best places to live in the country, and for all of the reasons that publications describe. And it's always interesting when I see that superlative. The question that is raised then is for whom? Like, who are we talking to? Who is being told that this is where they need to come? Because what you all are sharing is not unique. Like, I've heard the same theme over and over and over again, but I feel like it may be hard to confront that reality when Madison is continuously lauded for these other things. So how do you personally navigate that space, while you call Madison currently home, or Solomon, when you did call Madison home?
That's an interesting question, Angela. How do we answer that?
I'm like,
You're like, how do you go there?
Right.
I'm gonna let Jackie start. Go ahead, Jackie. I can see your brain is percolating.
So basically, you're asking. So they steady raving that Madison is a great place to live, but yet we're saying that, hold up, it really ain't all that great for us, and especially socially. So what's up with that? Is that okay? So here's the thing. Well, we're very adaptable. Like I'll speak for myself. I'm very adaptable, and it took a long time for me to finally embrace the fact that I am very socially isolated. At first, it didn't seem like it was, right? But as I've aged and gotten older here in Madison, I am very socially isolated here. But now I'm not restricted to here. See, before I had kids, and I was limited as to what I could do. Now I was very good, very creative about finding things for me and my kids to do here that I could afford. We had our little getaways, our little trips to family in Chicago, trips to family in Indiana, trips to family down south, those kind of escapes. But now, since I'm no longer raising children in my home, I have, and because of a global pandemic, and the realities and uncertainties of life, both, I have not restricted myself any longer. So I create opportunities to have those meaningful social experiences that I need. Why is it often said that Madison is a great place to live? Because it is for the people that it is a great place to live for. And that being Madison is a white space. Simple as that. Like, it's simple as that. I'm watching how Madison is growing. I'm watching all these new apartment complexes. Now, I work in the human services field, so to speak. No, I do. And I'm watching all the new developments and housing units coming up. And yet I can, at any given moment, respond or have a request from a homeless person, somebody who just get evicted, somebody who can't afford their rent, somebody, right? And I just I ponder that question myself. How is it that all this new development is going up? Who in the hell is supposed to live in all these apartments? And how are they getting filled? They're getting filled because people are coming in. They're coming into Madison for these new jobs, tech jobs like Epic and what's the exact sciences and things like that. And they're bringing those young minds and great people in, but they're neglecting the people that are already here. And Madison is a tale of two cities. I don't care what nobody say. I ain't gonna argue that. I state it, it's a fact, and that's it. I'm not arguing with you about that. And I'm almost willing to say it's a tale of 3 or 4 cities, maybe even 5. With some of the things that come my way, and some of the systems that I try to navigate and support families through. So personally, Madison, coming from where I came from, Madison has been so good to me. You know what I mean? And to my family. I have to own that. And I honor Madison and Wisconsin for that. But you had to have had you had to have been in the pit that I was in to appreciate it the way that I can. And everybody don't have that experience, because a lot of people are still in the god darn pit. And they've been here for years, and they have crawled and they've made steps, but only to get drugged back down. You know what I mean? So yeah, we'll go ahead and just agree that it's a tale of 2 cities, but one of those cities is probably like 4 or 5 different other cities too. And then I'll stop there.
Yeah. Jackie brings up a really good point. I mean, Cap Times did a story on home ownership of Black people. And we have one of the worst Milwaukee does way better, but Milwaukee's not touted as one of the best cities in the state to live in, but Madison is. And Madison has one of the lowest Black home ownerships in the state. And there's reasons for that. That were pretty clearly laid out, from redlining to lack of access to mortgage. And I remember getting my first mortgage. If I didn't have the banker I had, I wouldn't have got my first mortgage in Madison. And my wife's a lawyer. I'm a person with a PhD, and we were having some issues. Now, there may have been some issues around our credit, but that's something we learned because we weren't educated in that way. So having a degree doesn't mean that magically you now are intelligent about finances. I mean, I was the first person, both of us were the first people in our family to get advanced degrees, let alone college degrees. And so, my parents, who did the best they could with the knowledge they had, and my wife's parents as well, we didn't understand how to do some of that as we were growing up. Other people have that advantage now. Our kids have some of that, but they still have to tell their kids how to do it, because we only can go so far with what we have. But I think that, yeah, Madison is a beautiful space to be in. I'm not going to deny that. I love the lakes. I love the bike paths. I feel very safe at night when I walk without worrying about. That's a privilege. That's an environmental privilege to be able to walk at night in your neighborhood, do an exercise walk. And you went now, I'm not saying I'm going to be crazy and act like nobody's going to hit me, but it's just that is an advantage I have that makes for a better state of well-being. That's the reality. Now, on the other side of it is, it hurts me to see so many people whom are in Madison, whom are Black, are in these places that I always call like refugee camps. They put people in these spaces, and that's the only space they're allowed to be in, and it's horrible. I mean, there's no grocery stores. There may be a rec center, but it's not really fully resourced. They put people in these jobs that don't pay them very well. But they're doing God's work to take care of the families and these children that they're trying to, and then you feel and I have to feel I have definitely a survivor's guilt, not only within my family, but even when I'm in the Madison as a community. I have the advantage of living in a really nice neighborhood, a really nice home with a decent salary. My kids can go to college. They didn't pay for it. I did. I'm still paying for it, but I did. I mean, it's those things that make you feel guilty. I do. And that's a reality of, I think, for many Black academics whom I talk to on Black Twitter, that keeps me alive. If I didn't have Black Twitter, it would be hard to survive in a place like Madison, because even as an academic, you're somewhat isolated because there's so few of us. And so many of us, when they get here, we stay for a little while, then we leave. They don't stay in Madison, these academics who are doing quite well. But we do have the Gloria Ladson buildings, and we do have several people. I'm only mentioning, but I should mention others, so I shouldn't have started mentioning anybody. But I'm thinking of people who do stay and do support the community in ways they can, but also do uplift some of the issues around race and class and gender that are problematic, not just in Madison, but in the world. But it is an isolating space, because you can see, as an academic, I document so clearly the differences of how people are treated. And it's so clear. And I always encourage people who do work in poverty research, you really need to study Wisconsin, because this white space, which is Wisconsin, everyone does really well, except for those who happen to be able to persevere and be able to have the supports around them and able to get in, do well as well. But we don't recognize that often, because there's so many historical traumas that we're trying to overcome, that some people are trying to deal with. But also, it's just a space that doesn't always even see. I just always feel like, for example, when I go in Trader Joe's on Monroe Street, I feel like I'm so invisible. Like I'll be trying to pick a bouquet of flowers, and somebody will just go right in front of me and pick it. I'm thinking, I don't want to say the curse word I was about to say, but I'm like, you didn't see me just trying to pick out my own. But anyway, there's those experiences that you have that you start thinking, do they even see I'm right here doing what I'm doing, and you just bombard me? But anyway, I don't know what Solomon was saying. I don't want to take too much air, but I'll turn it over to Solomon.
Yeah, this is a really interesting question, just because like I spent most of my life as a kid in Wisconsin, so I don't have the experience of dealing with home ownership or dealing with certain things of that aspect. I remember the first time I heard, though, that Madison was, like, I think, yeah, like you said earlier, like one of like the top cities in the country for that, like on some list. I remember the first time I heard that, I was probably like 16, and I was like, really? Like, but then at the same time I understood, because it was like, like what David said, like the lake is really nice. They have some nice events here and there that you can pull up to, and it has that feeling and energy for the people that is rightful. But I don't know. It's very, like, for me, in order to kind of survive my time, especially when I was in school and I had more freedom. You know, when I was still living in my parents' house, you know, I couldn't just get up and leave whenever I wanted to and leave Wisconsin. You know, I didn't have that type of freedom. But when I was 17, I moved out. That I was like immediately like, okay, well, let me see where else I can go. You know, so as often as I could, I was catching buses to wherever, to Chicago, to Milwaukee, to Minneapolis, because I had communities out there that you know, I felt at home with. And it's funny because I felt more at home in those communities like way before I even knew how to deal with my situation in Madison. So that was, you know, I think it really wasn't until because I left the summer of 2020. That's like when I moved. I was, you know, I took the first opportunity I could get and I left. And but it wasn't until that last summer that I finally made some sort of peace with my history in Wisconsin, which was because I had time to myself. You know, my that summer I think my sisters lived with me, so we had an apartment together. My two younger sisters. I was done with school, but you know, pandemic was going on. But I had a lot of time to myself, so I spent a lot of time. You know, I was with the community, but I spent a lot of time in isolation. Like, but this time in a positive way. You know, I spent time reading. I spent time going on walks, riding bikes. Like I didn't, you know, like this stuff. I was like, yeah, I never really got the chance to enjoy myself. And I feel like that was the first time I really got a chance to enjoy being me, being myself, and just enjoying myself in a space that I kind of dealt with a lot of trauma. And you know, like it's like like it's some fun things too, you know, being at the school too. It's like, you know, there's events to go to. It's, you know, it's you're meeting up with friends. I'm going to dance sessions at night. You know, I'm having a good time, but then I also have my moments where it's like, you know, on multiple occasions when I was out at night, you know, minding my own business, and then you know, coming across like some drunk white people and like, you know, being like my life being threatened like multiple times, like, and I'm not doing anything. And like feeling a sort of anger, like I hate it, like kind of like I hate this place. I want to leave. Like I don't have to deal with this, you know. Especially when I know, when I knew I could thrive in other places. I already had evidence that I could thrive outside of Wisconsin. So I was like, why am I still here? You know. So it took a lot of time by myself. And even that summer with my sisters, I think we just spent a lot of time, you know, and it maybe making up for lost time, you know, making up for lost time, and growing up in Wisconsin too, and also kind of not knowing how to. When we was kids, we was around each other, but we didn't know how to be there for each other. We all had like our experiences, we all had like our traumatic experiences, but we didn't know at the time that any of us was going through any of those things, because we were never in spaces that encouraged us to talk about those things, or encouraged us to that it was okay to be, you know, be open, be vulnerable, and talk about how those things affected you and how maybe they still affect you. And so it took a lot of time. It definitely took a lot of years for me to, I think, get to the point that I am now. And a lot of things I learned in Wisconsin, I'm still applying. You know, I'm still applying. When I was in Connecticut, now I'm here in Atlanta. You know, when I'm in my own space, when I'm by myself. So it's I don't know, like Madison is a very Wisconsin, but especially Madison too, is a very layered experience, and it's hard to talk about sometimes. I'm not like, even now, it's just like so much running through my head. I'm like, yeah, it's so much you could say. So I think I'll leave it there for now.
Oh, well, thank you for your transparency and your vulnerability in sharing about both your experiences and the things that you have figured out to help you navigate what that experience has been like for you. And like I said, I appreciate this conversation. I think this is very reflective of the tone and what we try to bring with Why Race Matters and the conversations we have with others in the Black community who are here and living just like everyone else, but because of the nature of belonging to a historically marginalized group, our existence also has a political bent to it. So a lot of us are equally committed to improving the place we call home. So it's not lost on me that everyone on the screen, outside of your Why Race Matters advisory commitment, your professional lives are tied to how do we make this better? How do we make this space something that can be equally enjoyed, equally accessible, regardless as to your background? So thank you for that. Thank you for your energy, your commitment, your expertise that you bring every single day to try to move the needle so that that superlative list that Madison is on, that Wisconsin gets recognized for, equally applies to everyone that's here. David, looked like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on what Jackie and Solomon said, because it was very reflective of what I do that they both said so eloquently. Is, it comes to a place where you have to think about your freedom and how you're going to have peace in that freedom. And so Madison, I just love it in the summertime. The winter is okay, but the summertime is unbelievable to me. It's just a beautiful space, and I want to be able to take advantage of that space as a Black person. I want to be able to walk in that space, eat in the restaurants, walk in the park, go to the festivals, Dane dances, whatever it is. I want to be in that space too and feel comfortable. That's the part that gets to, but I have to also be at peace, whatever I'm going to be dealing with, because if I don't get to a space of peace, it's going to affect me mentally and physically. That's just the truth. And so I think this is a space where I don't know if this is for everybody, but what I'm hearing from this conversation is that people don't understand that, I don't know if this is the way to put it, but being Black when I look in the mirror, I know every day I'm Black. And I recognize that every single day. And I know that when I walk out the door, I'm going to be seen as this Black man. They're not going to see a PhD. They're not going to see a book writer. They're not going to see an author. They're not going to see an educator. They're going to see a Black man, and that's going to be whatever they have in their head. So I have to be prepared for that. So that's something we have to do, despite anywhere in the country. I just think Madison puts it on another. They go hard on that. They go really hard on, you're a Black man. What are you doing here? That's real. And I think that's why I think what Solomon says is his young wisdom. You have to get to a place of peace. And that's what I've gotten to. I go home. I'm cool with my wife. We have a good relationship, cool with my kids. I have some family here. That's my circle. I have some friends, of course, who are non-Black, but I'm cool with them. But when I really get down and have fun, it's with my Black family, and that Black joy I know is revolutionary. I know my Black joy is important. I know that Black joy is fun. We're having a family reunion this weekend. I'll get replenished, and that'll get me ready for the next couple of weeks before I hang out with another group of Black people who replenish me every time, because that's what I need. I don't get that here as I get it somewhere else. So, but that's what you have to figure out how to do in these, at least for me, in these spaces.
Yeah, thank you for that, David. Solomon, looked like you wanted to say something as well.
Oh no, I was just in tune with what he was saying.
Oh, okay. I saw you come off mute, so I'm like, he wants to add. But yes, thank you so much for that call out. And like you said, that replenishment, that is so, like, when I go out of town, like that's what I'm looking for. When I go travel, it's like, let me soak up, kind of like, I forget which superhero, like Superman, right? Gets replenished by the sun. It's like going to those spaces to get rejuvenated, and then you come back because it may be a minute until you're able to get that again. It was also funny because when you were talking, it looked like Miss Jackie was trying to invite herself to your family reunion situation this weekend. But go ahead, Miss Jackie.
No. It is exactly like that. You have to go fill your cup, and then come back, then retreat. Fill your cup, come back, and honestly, it's been about 30 years of that for me, because it was the biggest culture shock when I moved here with my kids being small. And it was even for them. I remember one of the first I guess school starts in September. So in October, I got 2 kids born in October. It was so much so that My one kid wanted to just, for his birthday, didn't want no presents, no party, no none, just wanted to go to Chicago. Just wanted to go hang out on the block. And he wasn't number 12. He was turning 12. So even 30 some years ago, when I brought my kids here, they experienced that as well. So yeah, they can't wait. Like 3 of them are gone already. 4 are out of the state of Wisconsin. Couldn't wait to leave. And then I got these last 3 here who are making moves already, lining up what region of the country they're gonna go to. So we'll all have some place to visit.
Mm.
Love that planning. So you already have it mapped out. Like we can East Coast, West Coast, which time zones, all of that. So thank you for that too, Miss Jackie. What I want us to think about maybe it's like a closeout and thinking about the conversation we just had and the Why Race Matters conversations in general, which are topical, but they're very much like this. We're having conversations that may center on education, may center on the prison industrial complex, may center on housing disparities, et cetera. But it's very much like what is the lived experience as well as expertise that we're just conversing about. What do you want people that are viewing this to take away? And with the acknowledgement of there are diverse viewers. There are some who they're listening to us. They're like, yep, that is me. I so 100% agree. And then some might be surprised or learning for the first time that, wow, like my awesome experience isn't maybe equally the same for others who don't look like me. So regardless as to the audience that you're thinking about, what do you want them to take away from our conversation and Why Race Matters conversations as a whole? Oh, you're muted, Miss Jackie.
I said, I think it's just that race does matter. We can't just, pretend that it doesn't. And no matter who you are, I know we've used this a couple of times, at least I've said it a couple of times, that Madison is a white space. It is, but there are different kind of white spaces as well. Just like I said, there was Madison is a tale of potentially 2 cities, and with each one of those cities, there's probably 5 other cities, and that's the truth. That's what I mean. So everybody, like I just hope that people are able to openly, to feel free to watch the episodes, to journey through the episodes, and to just be open and just keep that as their point of reference, the fact that yes, race does matter, because everybody doesn't experience it the same way that I'm experiencing. And there are other people who are experiencing it way better, way different than I'm experiencing. Just be open to the fact that race does matter. That's it.
I agree with Jackie wholeheartedly that race matters. But the one thing I was having this conversation with my wife last night, that race matters. So if you're trying to diversify your place and you just bring in a Black person, that doesn't mean that you really have embraced equity and inclusion. That just means you put a Black person or a brown person there. But listen to what they bring in terms of a Black-centered discussion. What is their unique experiences? What is their life experience? What's their lived experience? And what does that mean about how different you're going to have to be moving forward in your delivery of services? And that's what I hope these episodes have enlightened people about in delivery of services, like the home ownership or the art episode or the delivery of services. Is about there are some different challenges as well as strengths that people bring to the table whom are Black. But they also have been codified in a way by legal statutes that didn't want to see them as even human at one point. And then still at the same point, people are fighting for their voting rights at this point in America because they're not seen as equal, even though people are not saying it. But the subtle things that people are doing are very much that. And I think that we have tried and with my colleagues, we've tried very hard to be honest and fair, but also not to perpetuate any stereotypes about what's going on, but to keep it real. And I think that's been something I want people to understand from what I've been a part of is that we don't always agree, but we have agreed to the point that we can move forward and say this is what we want people to see about the lived experience of Black people in Wisconsin. So I would hope that people take away from this, don't think you've done a great job because you hired a Black person. Because that to me, that's just window dressing. How have you really embraced them in the decision-making process and the leadership and also the well-being? How have you really engaged them in a way that they really are a part of the team and not just your window dressing?
Yeah. So my closing thoughts. I'd say what I really want people to take away is just because you haven't seen it yet doesn't mean it doesn't exist. No matter who you are, like I think we all grow up with a certain set of conditioning. You have your specific circles, you have specific ways that you were taught to look at the world and all of this. And it's like until you learn how to get outside of that, you really can't see the spectrum of experience that is literally embedded in every aspect of life in America, of the Black experience. And it's like, just the kind of what Miss Jackie was saying too, like just be open, like be open. You don't have to come in being like, oh, I 100% agree. Just be open and listen and just learn to really listen and learn and realize that there's aspects and there's things that are happening, people that exist and experiences that exist that you have not seen or heard or experienced yet yourself. And how are we supposed to understand how much something matters if you really haven't done the work to step outside of your own conditioning, outside of your own circle or way of doing things or way of seeing the world,
Something, Angie, I was going to, this, I don't know why this popped in my head, but something that Solomon said, and I know why it popped in my head. Something Solomon said made me think about this past summer for me. I've experienced a lot of people who were close to me who have died. And just the experience of a Black person with a dead person, a dead one, a person who's died, how they mourn that death has really shown differences in Black and white people. I mean, it's just amazing how, the funeral may be 2 weeks and then you need chances over a number of weeks to even get yourself back together, depending on if it's your brother or your father or whomever. And the world just doesn't see that as in the same way. I know I want to say it's a small thing. It's not a small thing, but it's just been, I'm hoping these shows show that there is another way to live. The way you've chosen to live in your white space is not the only way to live. That's not the only way to operate and make decisions. There's other ways to make decisions that are important to your well-being and your mental and physical health. And people don't see that. They criticize, I need a week off because I just can't really do it. Well, I need that report tomorrow. Well, you ain't gonna get that report tomorrow because I can't mentally do it. I mean, so I think it's definitely from a personal space. My brother died this summer, and so I haven't been able to get work done. And people who are asking for papers, who are asking me I just can't mentally do it. And I've been trying very hard to do stuff, and it only really hit me because I've been ignoring it, trying to go into my space that's non-Black to do it. And I have to admit that's part of the experience I hope that people get from these videos or from this discussion, that you have to acknowledge differences and respect those differences. And so Solomon should be teaching my class. He should be the PhD person. His wisdom makes me think more and more. But anyway, that's kind of a rambling there. Maybe they'll edit this out. But anyway, I thought it was very helpful to hear that kind of conversation.
Yeah. Well, no, and I love that was a mic drop, honestly, to acknowledge difference. And the one way that we're taught is, or shown, not necessarily explicitly taught, but is shown is not the way for everyone or doesn't work for everyone. And that's okay. How are we accommodating that difference versus judging or looking down on people because their approach to life is different than yours? So I appreciate that call out. I appreciate the reiteration that race does matter. It shouldn't, but because we know there are differences that are clearly correlated with race, we can't ignore that reality, especially if we all want to equally enjoy and access the state that we call home. So thank you so much, so much to our panelists and viewers for joining us for today's panel discussion. We hope that our conversation has allowed an opportunity for all of us, honestly, to reflect on our experiences and how we can all support improving equity in our state. As a reminder, you can watch the first episode of Why Race Matters now online at whyracematters.org and in the free PBS video app everywhere you stream TV. New episodes will be released each Monday through October 3rd. Thank you all so much again, and have a great day.